my journey with RFID technology or UHF technology as well in the laundry industry. I want to share it with you so that you can avoid mistakes that I made and learn from successes that I've done and performed. So stick to it, and there will be a summary at the end. Hi, my name is Christian Wurzelball. I support the textile service industry with management training, now in Textile Service 4.0, and practical hints that you can implement right away. So let's start from the beginning. Actually, the first start was without me. So I was in America from 97 to 98. And during this time, my father sold the first scrap vending machines. Yeah, this was actually quite early. So he was one of the first adapters in the industry in Europe. And he sold 2 to 1 very big hospital, and it worked very well. But this was at this time low frequency, so LF tags. And we had then a few more of these garment vending machines installed. And at the end, we had 20, but in the very beginning, just 1 or 2 more a year. And then we switched in 2000 to HF tags, with the hope that you can read more than one tag at once, which is just a nice idea, because of course you can do it, but most of the time you use an HF tag just like a barcode. You read one item at once. The reality is that the readers where you can multi-read is just a tunnel, and it's very expensive, so we didn't do it. So basically we replaced in one plant the barcode with HF tags, and we implemented HF tags in all the garment vending machines. Yeah, and then come 2008. And in 2008, we got a really, really nice contract, a funny contract actually. It was for a huge hospital in Vienna. So it was huge rather from the size of the area. It was like a small town. It had over 1,000 beds, so it was not small. But it was a small town because it was in the park, and every building there were. It was just a park with many buildings, and this was the hospital. Therefore, the logistics was also very complicated. And the challenge was that the previous supplier has not been able to make a satisfying textile service for 30 years, actually. 30 years. The business relationship was in the newspapers. There were lost charges of $500,000, even $1 million a year, and it was sometimes even before court, and it was not so easy. So the laundry blamed the hospital that the linen was just lying around, and the hospital blamed the laundry that they didn't deliver the goods and that they delivered to the wrong hospitals and so on. So it was basically a mess. So they decided to insource it into their own laundry. So they had a central laundry in Vienna, and they wanted to insource this hospital. But they knew that they were not able to perform the logistics of the last mile, so right to the ward or department. Therefore, they outsourced. They made a tender to outsource the last mile of the logistics. And we then thought, okay, it's a nice idea. There is this UHF Technology. We have the software as well. And this customer will pay nice money. Let's offer them logistics with HF tags. So we got the contract actually. So what we did was to collect the soiled linen from the ward and also the soiled garments, and tag everything with UHF tags. At this time we sewed it. We had a sewing machine and a sewing robot, and we sewed everything. So it was really, really much effort in the very beginning. You can imagine, I think 6 or 7 people were just sewing the first few weeks. And we collected the linen from the department. Then we had a tunnel to read all the soil. And we took the soil then to the laundry. And out of this reading of in the soil side, we generated the order for the next delivery. So the linen that they picked for this special department were then also read through an tunnel, and then we shipped it to the ward again, so to the department. Yeah, that was the logistics. It was really, really expensive, but they paid a nice price, and we solved the problem. So basically, this hospital that had a problem with textiles for 30 years, was completely satisfied within weeks. And the root cause was that we had a very stable inventory on each department. So they got the same number of items that they disposed as soil. They got back as clean. So they had always enough linen. So they didn't need to complain on the one hand. There was no hoarding of linen. The hospital was able to identify losses. So they would talk to the different departments that had losses, yes. And we could manage also the losses on the department level. It was incredible. It was really incredible. So for years on end, this customer was satisfied. No problem whatsoever. And then I thought, wow, RFID is actually a solution. I had really an epiphany, and what I realized was back then in the 1990s, in the late 80s, we solved the problem with garments, with the barcode. So basically in the 70s and in the early 80s, we had a real issue similar to linen with garments, because there was an amount of garments that were supposed to be at the customer, but nobody knew because there was no barcode. It was just a guess. Yeah. So after 1 year, 2 year, 5 years of a contract of a customer, it was a mess, and you couldn't do anything about it because it was impossible to take inventory for garments. And we fixed this problem in the 90s with barcode. There was basically we got to the point that there was a really high satisfaction with our service for uniforms. But we were not able to fix the issue with linen. And I realized with this example of Vienna that RFID technology can help us as a company to solve the problem with linen. Yeah, but still I was a little bit desperate because the UHF tags were just too expensive. So it was no way that we could introduce UHF for all our linen for, I don't know, 30 hospitals and 150 nursing homes at this time. You couldn't tag this with UHF tags. It was just too expensive. So we said, okay, nice experience. We cannot replicate it. So then UHF came around. So in 2010, we got the first news that there is a new technology. And I thought, let's test UHF technology. Maybe this is the solution. Maybe I can then introduce the same as we did for our big client in Vienna, also to our other customers. And I said, let's give it a try. And there was a small plant in our group in Czech Republic, just 3 tons a day. And this small plant was basically 100% COG. And we got one new rental customer, actually 3 hospitals, 400 beds altogether, so it's not big. But still, for the small plant, 400 new beds, hospital with rental, that was, at least for this plant, it was a challenge. I said to them, okay, let's do it with the scrap suits. So, I don't know, they had 2, 3, 4,000 pieces altogether. I don't remember, but not a lot. And I said, let's solve the issue with scrap suits with UHF Technology. Let's test it there. And then the start of this contract was in May. And I remember that in March and in April, everybody went crazy in the IT department, in the purchasing department of the company. Everyone went crazy. And everyone was going to Czech Republic. And I thought, wow, just a few scrap suits, why is this such an effort? And then 1 week before the delivery, I realized, I was told that they tagged everything, every single item to the smallest one. They would even tag these small items. So it was interesting. Still to this day, I do not know whether this was a misunderstanding because German was not her native tongue, and maybe she misunderstood me, this general manager in Czech Republic, or maybe she was just really ambitious. I don't know. She never told me. And so we started from 0 to 100% with 3 hospitals, probably one of the first in Europe, maybe one of the first in the world, with UHF Technology. And that was a real experience. And then I knew why the IT department was so engaged. And it took us half a year or even a little bit longer to get everything running smoothly because we had to learn how to read it and to also have the right middleware between the hardware and the ERP system. So it was quite some challenge in the beginning, and we had to exchange some things and also readjust the hardware. But we had a really, really good IT department, and they did a great job. And also the people in Czech Republic did a great job, like really great. And so after 6 months, maybe 9 months, it went very well. And we had basically a proof of concept that it works. And the tags were actually quite affordable. They were twice as expensive as today, but still they were much cheaper than HF, and they were smaller and easier to apply. So then we thought, let's give it a try also in Austria. And there we had an issue with the nursing homes. So we had a very good service for the private clothing for nursing homes, and also the garment side. The uniforms were doing very well. So we had a very good service there. But we had some issues with the linen, and this was a different story. This was actually maybe my fault because I stressed the management too much with optimizing the inventory at the customer. And so they reduced the inventory levels, and we had an issue with the fulfillment rates and also to get punctual delivery. Yeah, and so it's a little bit of a different story. I take it on me. In any case, we had a customer service issue there. And I said, okay, this can be the solution and let's do it. And then we introduced UHF in this plant for 12 tons a day, 12 metric tons, which is about 25,000 pounds a day. And for 150 nursing homes, so just flat linen. And we changed it to UHF within 1 year. We had a very, very good project management back then, really, really good. This was the result of an M&A transaction that we did. So we bought one company in 2008, and we learned from an external consultant that project management is something really nice. And therefore we applied it, and we had actually a really, really good project management then for the introduction of UHF. So we would basically separate the tagged customers from the non-tagged customers, and we would take back all the linen from the customer as if it would be a change of supplier. So we would take all the linen back from the customer and ship tagged linen to the customer and change it over basically completely within 1 day. So we would, and this was actually one of the interesting things. This was remarkable because even though we tried to reduce the expenses for linen purchases beforehand, we took one complete truckload back from one nursing homes, one truck from one nursing homes, and we delivered just a third of a truck back to the nursing home. So they had much too much high inventory levels beforehand, and it was incredible. So we basically ended up with a linen injection for the next 3 to 4 years of just 5% of revenue. So we basically had far too much linen afterwards sitting around, and doing it this way worked very well. And after 1 year, say 15 months, we said this was an success and was very nice. Basically what we did was to install two readers with 8 antennas on the sole side on very specific places in order to get next to 100% reading quality on the sole side, which worked actually very fine. And then we generated out of this reading on the soil side, we generated the order for the different unit at the nursing home. So there's this different department, I don't know how you call it in English, at the nursing home, and this generated the order, and then we would pick the order and put it into a cabin, and this cabin would read then the UHF tags and apply these tags to the department again, and then we would ship it out. So basically it was on the soil side UHF, and on the clean side it was UHF, and it worked really fine. But it also worked fine because the process was already very stable. We did the same thing then in another plant that was new, and where we had an issue with the team, because we had to hire 40 people at once, so from 0 to 40 people, and it was a little bit of a tight labor market, so we had also a really big employee turnover in the first 1 or 2 years, and it was tough there, and we had operational issues there, and therefore we had sometimes a backlog of linen on the so outside of the plant, and we had no readers outside of the plant, and therefore the customer wouldn't get, so we wouldn't get a read to generate the order for the next delivery for one department, and would not ship anything at this time to this department, but would ship then twice as much at the next delivery. And basically the customer said after 2 months, screw it, we do not want to have your ordering system, let's go back to normal ordering. Yeah, so this was not a success story, and what I really learned is that UHF doesn't fix the basic issues in the laundry, and I would even add to it that with RFID technology you should get your homework done beforehand, before you introduce UHF technology. So stabilize the process at least to some extent, so you shouldn't have major issues like we had in this plant with employees. So it should be like what we had in Czech Republic or what we had in the other plant, where you have a quite stable process. Then it works very well, because then you can also concentrate yourself in introducing this technology the right way, because it's in the beginning a little bit of an effort. So this was the experience in another plant, but then we saw it actually works really great in this plant. and we got also a really, really good response from other customers, and we wanted to use this technology then also to automatize the plant itself. So we were really early in adapting this automatization. This was in 2014, 2015. And this was maybe a mistake, or not a maybe. It was a mistake. So we said we want to build a new plant for healthcare, and we thought if the textile has already the information that you are this specific item, why not use this information also for sorting and for other things within the stack checking and so on within the production. And it was and the design of the plant was really, really automatic. So we planned it for a productivity of 80 kilograms per operator hour, which we actually also attained. So we attained 1 year after 80 kilograms per operator hour, which is 180 something, 170, almost 180 pounds per operator hour. So we were very, very productive, but the problem was the first half of the year, in starting with this new plant, because we had to retrofit all the linen with tags, and at this time I didn't trust the heat sealing of the UHF tags. The heat sealing was not so mature back then as it is now, so we basically started again with sewing the UHF tags onto the textiles, and we had something like 20 people sewing the tags onto the textiles, because we are talking 35 tons a day and 40 hospitals. So it was quite a huge business just for linen, so not garments. Garments is on top of it, and also surgical drape. So the whole plant for hospitals was 65 tons a day. And not 65, 55 tons a day was just the hospitals, and on top of it came then the nursing homes at this facility. And 35 tons a day hospital linen, retrofit also with tags, and it was a huge challenge. We did it at the end, but the first half of the year was, I do not recommend it. I do not recommend to have a process that has no bypass. So you need to have a process. If you start to automate, you need also to be able to use the machines without UHF, which we couldn't do. So the the whole process didn't work without UHF, and this was a mistake. But at the end of the day, it worked. But yeah, the costs were tremendous for the changeover. So it was basically a mistake to do the changeover this way. Therefore, I can also recommend as a learning to start with UHF early, because if you want to introduce UHF fast, then it's expensive. If you introduce UHF customer by customer, as we did in the beginning, if you introduce it item for different items at once, and then change the next items and the next items, that's also much easier. So if you have a project that you can, if you have a longer term, if you have more time to change over business, that makes it much more easily. So that's one learning that I can give you. Don't do it too fast, especially. And also that I saw that there is a difference between hotels. Hotels, it worked really, really fine. Nursing homes, it worked really, really fine. And with healthcare, it's a little bit of a challenge. So you need to understand the hospitals. They are having quite a lot of internal logistics. So there are many flows of linen within the hospital. You have outflows of the linen to the nursing homes. You have also much more linen around. So a hospital is a little bit more challenging to introduce RFID than with a nursing home or with a hotel. But it's feasible and it's meaningful. So I think I can recommend it, but I would I would recommend you to do it on the one hand step by step, and on the other hand to do it with a very, very good project management. Yeah, so these are a few learnings from mine. And so what I can summarize is that the technology is quite mature. So the tags, the longevity of the tags are basically no issue. So you can even sterilize these tags, and we had actually no issue with the longevity of the tags. So the tags last longer than the textiles. I can say this is a check. The antennas, if you install them properly, work very well. If you do not install them properly, then you have a problem. But if you have a very good design of your workstations, then UHF technology works very fine. But you shouldn't take a shortcut there. You need the right software. So if you have a problem with the software, then it's a big problem. So I had the luxury of a really, really good IT department. I had the luxury of a really, really good supplier for laundry software. In this case, it was Advantix. I can recommend Advantix. But if you have not the proper IT, then you are also screwed. And if you want someone to help you along the way, as you see, I have quite some experience in it. And I'm doing now also RFID Project, amongst other things, for laundries and customers of laundries right now. So if you have a need to talk with, and if I can help you, I can do small projects even online, and for bigger ones, of course, we need to analyze it on premise and at the customer. If you liked this video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. There will be more videos to come, not just on UHF, but also on UHF. And so I want to make a contribution to the industry, also with the YouTube videos. And there is also a link down in the description for a download, an interesting one, a management guide for this time of inflation. And you can also book if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an executive, then you are free to book a consulting session with myself, and we take it from there. We see us in the next video. Bye bye.